we have one more chapter to go through your freshman year of biology. We're going to start out with the circulatory system, and then we'll end with the respiratory system. So here we go. Because these cells in our body aren't in direct contact with the external environment, we need to get oxygen, nutrients, and other substances in and wastes out. And that's what the circulatory system does. It's much like a city's transportation system. You have streets, highways, subways, train lines that deliver goods to the city and remove wastes. This is a closed system, the circulatory system, made up of heart, blood vessels, and blood. We're going to talk about the heart and the blood vessels today. You probably already know that your heart's a muscle. The muscle contracts before you're born. Right around 10 weeks of embryonic development is when the heart starts beating, and it stops only when you die. There are two thin layers of epithelial and connective tissue sandwiched around a muscle layer called myocardium. These contractions of the myocardium pump blood through the circulatory system. Resting heart rate on average is about 72 beats per minute, and each contraction pumps about 70 milliliters of blood. There are 4 chambers to the heart. A wall called the septum keeps the right side of the heart from the left side of the heart. That prevents oxygen-poor and oxygen-rich blood from mixing. Here's a diagram of the heart. Get to know this diagram. Make sure you know the flow from the body The blood enters the heart through the vena cava, superior and inferior, where my arrows are right now, and it comes into the right atrium. Then the heart contracts, the blood goes into the right ventricle. That contracts, the blood goes out into the lungs through the pulmonary artery, picks up oxygen, drops off wastes. Blood comes back through the pulmonary veins, enters the left atrium, goes to the left ventricle, heart contracts, blood is forced out of the aortic valve into the aorta, delivers oxygen to the rest of the body. Get to know this diagram. Make sure you know the order in which the heart operates. Now, one thing I want to point out right now. This is called the right side of the heart. You notice in the diagram it's on the left side. This is the left side of the heart. It's located on the right side of the diagram. We speak about the heart in terms of how it's situated in the body cavity. So this would be the left side of a person's body, and this would be the right side of a person's body. Here's the septum in the middle, right here. There's the upper chambers, which are the atria, right here, the top chambers. They receive blood. Just like architecturally, an atrium is an entryway. This is the entryway for the blood into the heart. These lower chambers are the ventricles. And if you look at them, this is how I remember it, they're kind of V-shaped. The lower chambers pump blood out of the heart, either to the lungs or to the rest of the body. Blood from the body enters the heart through the right atrium. Blood from the lungs enters into the left atrium. When the atria contract, blood flows into the ventricles. There are valves between the atria and the ventricles. On the right-hand side of the heart, the tricuspid valve is between the right atrium and the right ventricle. On the the left-hand side of the heart, the mitral valve is between the left atrium and the left ventricle. The valves open, and then when the ventricles contract, the valves close, preventing backflow of blood into the atria. There are also valves at the exits of each ventricle. In the exit of the right ventricle, the pulmonary valve, referring to the fact that that is leading to the lungs. And then in the left side of the heart, the ventricle has the aortic valve at the exit, referring to the fact that that is leading to the aorta. Again, this prevents backflow. The heart needs a supply of oxygen and nutrients. The coronary arteries are in charge of that job. They run through the heart tissue and supply blood to the heart muscles. If these become blocked, the heart muscle runs out of oxygen and could begin to die. This is what happens during a heart attack. The heart has two pumps. One pump pushes blood to the lungs, the other one pushes blood to the rest of the body. These are called pulmonary and systemic circulation, respectively. The right side of the heart pumps oxygen-poor blood from the heart to the lungs through pulmonary circulation. You see that here. This loop right here is pulmonary circulation. In the lungs, the carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood, from high concentration to low concentration. Oxygen does the reverse. High concentration in the alveoli into the blood, low concentration. And then the oxygen-rich blood flows to the left side of the heart. Systemic circulation is where the left side of the heart pumps oxygen-rich blood to the rest of the body. So we have coming out this way to the top of the body and this way to the bottom of the body. This is systemic circulation. In the reverse process as what happens in the lungs, oxygen flows from the blood at a high concentration into the cells at a low concentration, and then carbon dioxide diffuses out of the cells and into the blood. Oxygen-poor blood returns to the right side of the heart and goes back to the lungs to get more oxygen. The heartbeat is coordinated in a very specific way so that it's efficient. There are two networks of muscle fibers that coordinate this, one in the atria and one in the ventricles. Each contraction begins in a small group of cardiac fibers, the SA node, the sinoatrial node, which you see right here in the right atrium. This is called the pacemaker of the heart sometimes because it determines the heartbeat and how fast it's going. When the SA node fires, an electrical impulse spreads through all of the atria, muscle fibers, and the atria contract. Then the ventricles contract, and that's done in a delayed fashion by the AV node, another group of muscle fibers. There's a delay, like I said, for a fraction of a second, and then when the blood gets into the ventricles, the AV node produces impulses to cause them to contract. This two-step pattern, like I said, makes the heart efficient. Homeostasis dictates trying to keep everything in balance. So the heart rate will change depending on how much carbon dioxide and oxygen is in the bloodstream. Heartbeat's not directly controlled by the nervous system, but the autonomic nervous system influences the SA node. Neurotransmitters released by the sympathetic nervous system, remember stress, increase the heart rate. Neurotransmitters that are released by the parasympathetic nervous system, remember peace, decrease the heart rate. Oxygen-rich blood leaving the left ventricle passes into the aorta. This is the first of a series of blood vessels that carry blood through the systemic circulation and back to the heart. There are three types of blood vessels that blood flows through: arteries, capillaries, and veins. Arteries carry blood from the heart to the tissues of the body. I want you to think of the word away. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. The pulmonary arteries contain oxygen-poor blood, but every other artery contains oxygen-rich blood. Arteries have thick elastic walls that help them withstand the pressure produced when the heart contracts. The three layers of tissue are connective, smooth muscle, and endothelium. and each one has a specific job. Connective tissue helps the vessels expand under pressure. Smooth muscle regulates the diameter. And endothelium tissue lines the walls of all the blood vessels. The smallest blood vessels are called the capillaries. Most of them are so narrow that blood cells go through single file. The thin walls allow oxygen and nutrients to diffuse in, and carbon dioxide and waste products to diffuse out. And I should clarify that we're diffusing, oxygen and nutrients are diffusing from the blood into the cells, and carbon dioxide and other waste products are moving from the cells or the tissues back into the blood. Blood returns to the heart through the veins. And what I want you to think of when you hear the word vein is the word valve. We'll talk about that in just a second. Blood has to flow against gravity through the large veins in your arms and legs because our legs are down and our arms are down. So veins are located near and between skeletal muscles, and when those muscles contract, they squeeze the veins and push blood towards the heart. Veins also have valves that close to make sure that there's no backflow of blood. If you have a sump pump in your house and you hear it run, when there's a lot of rain, you hear it run, and it runs, and then there's like a clicking sound at the end, that's the same sort of concept. It's called a check valve that prevents the water from going back into the hole, the sump, in your basement floor. When the heart contracts, it produces blood pressure. Blood pressure falls a little bit when the heart relaxes, but there's still pressure because of the elasticity of the arterial walls. Blood would stop flowing through the body if there weren't that pressure there. Healthcare workers measure blood pressure with a device called a sphygmomanometer. We just call it a blood pressure cuff. But what happens is the cuff is inflated until the healthcare professional blocks the blood flow in that particular artery. As the pressure is released, they listen for the pulse, and when that pulse starts, it records the number from the meter. This is the systolic pressure, the force in the arteries when the ventricles contract. This is the higher number. Then when the pulse sound disappears, as they continue to release that cuff, the second number is recorded, that is the diastolic pressure, the force when the ventricles relax. Typical blood pressure, and that's the lower number, the diastolic, typical blood pressure is 120/80. More homeostasis here. Sensory receptors in the blood vessels detect blood pressure and send those impulses to the brainstem. When blood pressure is high, neurotransmitters will relax the smooth blood vessels in the blood vessel walls. When blood pressure is low, neurotransmitters are released that cause the blood vessel walls to constrict. It's called a vasoconstrictor. The kidneys also contribute to homeostasis with blood pressure. They affect the volume of the blood. Kidneys remove more water from the blood and eliminate it in urine when blood pressure is high. They conserve more water when blood pressure is low.